Good day, folks. Welcome to Monitoring and Evaluation Made Simple. Today we'll be discussing a topic, and that topic is, what is a Monitoring and Evaluation Toolkit? I know when you even go to Google right now, and you Google the word Monitoring and Evaluation Toolkit, it will give you so many things. Actually, there's one thing I should mention. There is actually a lot of information out there on monitoring and evaluation. Most of it you can get it for free. And most of it is in PDF format. There's also a lot of trainings. But the only difference that you'll find is that, you see, there's so much information and people don't really like to read a lot. Okay, but that's why you can come to me, because I'm able to give you that information in a very simple manner. So what is a monitoring and evaluation toolkit? I usually like to discuss definitions, not in a textbook way, but I usually like to give these definitions in a manner which is easier to understand. And most of the time, sometimes I'll use illustrations. So, haven't you noticed that when you've got personnel who are constructing a building, you've got different staff people there. You've got the normal workers, you've got engineers, you've got the planners, you've got the economists, all of them are there. So haven't you noticed that for the engineers, or those who are working, who are doing the actual building, have you noticed that they carry tools with them? It could be they're carrying a screwdriver. It could be they have a hacksaw. It could be they have a hammer. They have a helmet. All these tools fulfill a specific purpose. So when you put these tools together, when you put all these tools together into one box, others will say that's a toolbox that has been put together, a toolbox containing all those tools. But others will say a toolkit. So have you seen? I'm sure now you get the point. You know where this is going. Even in monitoring and evaluation, friends, as an M&E specialist, in order to fulfill your work, in order to fulfill your mandate, you need to have the right tools. Because even in the medical profession, you know, if you've got surgeons, these surgeons around the world who are doing operations, these surgeons, in order to do the right operation on a patient or a victim, they need to have the tools in place. Otherwise, they cannot operate on that patient. So it's the same thing with monitoring and evaluation. If we're going to do the work, if we're going to get the job done, we need the tools. So what are the tools? All right. I'll list them down to you, but not in a... I won't tell you the tools in a manner where it's one tool is more important than the other. It's more like a discussion. I want you to appreciate that we are discussing here, and they'll come one after the other, but not in any specific order. So to start with, in my view, the most important tool is the logical framework. For those of you who don't know what the logical framework is, it is simply the framework that summarizes what your project or program wants to achieve. The logical framework is the Bible for monitoring and evaluation, because all specialists in M&E, you go to a specialist, ask them this question, wherever you go, they are going to tell you that all they are interested in is tracking the indicators. And it is in the logical framework, it is in the log frame where all those indicators are listed. The log frame also tells you how you collect these indicators. Actually, let me put it this way. The log frame gives you just a summary, but born out of the log frame, you have the monitoring and evaluation framework. Okay, so it is in that framework where you can now further appreciate how you are going to monitor these indicators, what you are going to use to monitor, what further data will you need, secondary information, documentation, and also who are the personnel who are going to be collecting this information. So it is critical in anything you do. Even when you look at the engineers, when they're constructing all these buildings, they need some kind of a plan. Okay, they need a plan. They need to be constantly referring to the plan, those drawings, in order to understand what they are constructing. So it's the same thing with M&E. Our plan is the log frame. Of course, you can say, okay, what about the strategic plan? What about the program document? And those the things we need? Yes, but it is actually the log frame, because inside those documents, inside any strategic plan or program document, there's supposed to be a log frame, as whether it's annexed or it's in the document itself, in the main body. It's supposed to be there. Okay, so forgive me, I'm going to be diverting just slightly. I just want to talk further about the log frame. It's important to have, whenever there's a planning of a log frame, development of a log frame, it's important to involve the M&D specialists, because what I've noticed in my years of practice is that a lot of times stakeholders may include indicators that are not easy to measure and that are not easy even to understand and report on. So the specialists, because of their background, because of their knowledge on the subject, they're better able to guide people on this particular issue of how do we formulate indicators, how do we formulate the log frame. So the log frame, ladies and gentlemen, is not a one-day thing you just create. You need to have people involved. What some organizations have done is that they will involve as many important stakeholders in the programming of the strategic plan. Okay, and that is the best direction to go, because when it comes to planning, it shouldn't just sit at the top management level, no, but it has to be, people have to get involved. Okay, so we've talked about the log frame. So what is the other tool that we need in our toolbox as M&D specialists? Well, another tool we need are the data collection tools and instruments. So these monitoring and evaluation tools, these data collection tools or instruments, are the actual things you use to collect the information. Because at the end of the day, you need to ask yourself this question: what is it I am really collecting? You know? Because if you are putting in so much money into an activity, and then at the end of the day, you're not going to collect any information related to that activity, then what's the point really? So these data collection tools, these tools you use to collect information, could be questionnaires. Okay, There could be the questionnaires that you distribute to beneficiaries who are going to give you responses. Like for instance, if you have a project in which you want to increase the income levels of the people in a certain location, in a certain state or province, you're going to use those same questionnaires to ask the income levels of those individuals. Yeah. So it's really straightforward. Questionnaires have been used for decades. So how do you develop these questionnaires? Well, you have to develop them using, again, the log frame. So you see, the log frame is very important because the indicators will dictate what you're going to include excuse me, on those tools. Okay, so these questionnaires are part of the tools, but then you've got also other forms of collecting information. There could be focus group discussions. It could be direct observation, what you see. Okay, when you go to a certain the project site, what is it you see? You write a report based on your observation. But even when you are observing, what are you supposed to be observing? That's a question, and that has to be documented. So those are the tools, and these tools are used at different times. Okay, and you need to be familiar with that. So now, another tool which could be useful to an M&D officer are tools like, technology. All right. Every M&D officer needs the right technology, the right equipment. I think this isn't rocket science, but I just have to bring it out because sometimes organizations look at these things as a luxury. Sit down for one moment and ask yourself, these M&D specialists need to be traveling a lot. Okay? Do they have the right equipment? For starters, do they have a laptop? Okay? And in that laptop, does it have the right software to do the analysis of project results? Yeah? And mind you, there's something I need to also stress. M&D, although it's mostly applied in humanitarian work, you hear of M&D a lot when it comes to implementation of projects, programs, humanitarian stuff. But let me tell you this, let me challenge you actually and tell you this today, that M&D is cross-cutting. Believe it or not, it is cross-cutting, and this I have personally seen it. If you are looking at projects to do with construction, multi-million projects to do with construction of roads or buildings, there is need of an M&D specialist there. If you look at things to do with your personal life, you as a person undertake activities. What impact are those activities happening? How are these activities affecting your own personal growth? You see? So, if you look at it that way, you discover that M&D is cross-cutting. It affects your life. It can be applied anywhere. All right? Okay, so now what was I talking about? So now, when it comes to the tools, the laptop, you see, you need that as a tool. You need the right software to do the analysis. I must mention that in all the years I've been doing my practicing my skill, I haven't faced any problem using Excel as a software, Microsoft Excel, because Microsoft Excel can do the analysis for you. Okay, but there is really no harm in an organization procuring SPSS software. I've forgotten the name, the actual full name for SPSS, but for those of you who know it, I'm sure you understand. It is used to do so many things to do with analysis and the like of data. Excuse me. So SPSS is a good option if you can afford it, but I have no problems. I've never faced any problem using Microsoft Excel to analyze statistics. Okay. Then another thing, all M&D officers, of course, I mean, this is not rocket science, and you know, a phone has become a necessity globally. But I still feel that when it comes to the tools, organizations should invest in making sure that their specialists have the right equipment, and that includes the phone. Okay? Because when you invest in your staff, the results will show. Of course, there's this debate of saying if we invest too much, if we give them good salaries, they'll become lazy, they'll become too comfortable. So we need to strike a balance. And I agree, too much of everything is bad, but let's meet the minimum standard. You know, these people need to be traveling to check the progress of projects. You cannot make them travel by train or by the bus. They need to have their own personal vehicle. And that vehicle doesn't have to be so expensive, no, but it should just be enough to get the job done. Because of course you don't want to have, when they're doing their monitoring checks, you don't want to have a vehicle breaking down every now and then. It's a cost to the organization, it's a cost on resources, time, and the like. So there's no harm in an organization setting aside funds in their budget to procure a brand new vehicle, a Toyota Hilux, a Ford Ranger. There is no harm. And which brings me to the other debate or question. You know, sometimes there will be these questions, there will be these debates. How do you really strike the balance? Because some people, when you tell them that, no, you need to spend to get the things done, you know, they feel that really it's really a constraint to the organization. But let me tell you this. Some organizations have invested a lot in building the M&D systems to an extent that they even say that 10% of their overall budget will go to monitoring and evaluation. They've already put that as their commitment. So let us commit. Everyone should commit to implementing the M&D in their organization and projects. So now we've mentioned these tools, the data collection tools, we've mentioned the log frame, which is basically part of the planning, we've mentioned the equipment, okay? So ultimately, all these things need money, okay? All these things need money. So really, whenever you're coming up with a project or some kind of proposal, it is really important to highlight the importance of all these tools being in place, because actually it is critical from the very beginning that everything is spelled out clearly. This is how much we need to ensure that we are able to get the information that we can report on. Because you see, monitoring and evaluation, in my view, of course, it is always subject to debate from organization to organization, but it should have its own budget. Because at the end of the day, this money is coming from people that are paying tax, you see. Or it may not be donor funded, it may be an investment, but all that money is hard-earned money. And people need to be held accountable. All right? So it's really important that we don't shy away from reality. It's critical that we make the right decisions. And among those right decisions is to ensure that the M&D component in an organization is properly funded. And when it's properly funded, then you have the right tools. And it will not even be a question of subject to debate. If a specialist needs a laptop, needs a phone, needs a personal to order vehicle, and needs the software, and needs the allowance, the travel allowances to collect information, give him what he needs so that he's able to do his job and report on the results. Because at the end of the day, it is this information that's going to help you understand where the problems are with implementation and where you should improve. So in a nutshell, those are the monitoring and evaluation tools. But I want you to know that as months come by, I'm going to talk more about these tools, and then we are going to discuss on how best you can develop these tools, how best you can use them as you implement your various activities on the ground. So I sure hope you've enjoyed this discussion on monitoring and evaluation tools. If you are here for the first time, I would like you to subscribe to this channel so that you get the latest updates that you need to get. And also, don't feel shy to scroll around my channel to look at some of the other videos I've done, because they could benefit you in furthering your knowledge and understanding in monitoring and evaluation. I've been your host, Coach Alexander, and until we meet again, see you on the other side. Bye.